Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's had a fantastic start to their 2026. We want to thank you for spending some time with us over the weekend with our first round of virtual signings. We are back with a bunch of virtual signings this weekend. Kicking us off tonight, you've seen them all on your television screens over the last 2 decades. You've seen them WCW, of course, TNA, Impact. Can I get a shell? Yeah, for the one and only Shark Boy. Shark Boy, well, thank you so much for joining us in the Captain's Corner Happy Hour.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're going to have a good time over the next hour and a half. Like and share it out, guys. We're going to have all the photos laid out. We've got some cool cards left. We've got your pre-orders already in. So make sure, like I said, like and share out as we build the room, Shark Boy. Got to ask you, I know you spent a lot of time with Les Thatcher in your early days. Yeah. We've been privileged to talk with Les a bunch of times. What's some memories and fun story maybe you have of Les Thatcher?
Oh, I'll tell you what, man. I was just lucky enough to kind of find Les as he was starting opening up his wrestling school. And, above all else, man, the guy knows the business inside and out, helped me establish the foundation that I have to be a professional wrestler. And I just, just as in a broad sense, I just consider myself really lucky to have got the opportunity to start out there. So many guys, they'll sign up for wrestling school and find out after the fact that the teacher doesn't know what they're talking about, and they'll get the raw end of the deal. But that wasn't the case. In my case, I was extremely lucky, and I was just happy to get a chance to start out in the business that way.
Well, sitting on that Les Thatcher learning tree is even just in conversations I've had to him. I know he's a big Buckeye fan too.
Yeah.
He just so lucky to have that conversations with him.
Sure.
Like I said, like and share it out, guys. We're gonna go over the photos. Some of these are running low though, so don't delay if you want to get one in. Okay. When you see that number 1 photo, what do you think of?
Oh boy, this was sort of the heyday of TNA in my mind, anyway. At least for me, these were the good old days. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
I feel like this was probably right around the time maybe Kurt Angle was coming in and things, exciting things are going on. We're doing stuff with Sting, and I just nothing but fond memories when I think about TNA. Really,
that's the number 1 photo option. And I'll get it close for everyone at home. Check this out. Place your order in the comments. We've got the blue tint on, of course, for Shark Boy. Now, our number 2 is a great in-ring. Looks like you're at the top turnbuckle, all geared up.
Yeah. This one, I think this one was a little bit before that other one. I can just tell by the mask. Just the mask I'm wearing, and this one is a little bit older, I think. But, again, man, good times, TNA wrestling. I had nothing but fond memories there.
Now, that's our number 2. Mm-hmm. Our number 3, a nice up-close shot.
Yeah. Well, this was real early in TNA. This might have been.
Is that TNA?
Yeah.
I wasn't 100% sure.
You know what? I'm not 100% sure either, but I just, again, by looking at the mask and I think the background, this would have been the real early days of TNA, I think, when this particular photo was taken.
Number 3. Now, our most popular photo, I believe only one of these available.
Yeah.
The Cross the Line promo photo right there. That is our most popular pre-order. What do you think when you see that photo, Sean?
I see this photo all the time because this is probably my best-selling photo.
Okay.
When I go and do independent shows and do conventions and things, this is usually the one people select. So it's not surprised you're almost sold out of this one.
Good. We're in good company. Great minds think alike.
There you go.
And our number 5 right here.
That's cool. Yeah.
A cool edit.
This is from California, right? From LA. Total Tobacco.
I believe so. Yeah.
This is their work, and that's outstanding.
Any memories of IWR?
Where he doesn't say where that is.
Where is that?
Yeah.
Where is that? Nolan, let us know.
Wrestled for so many.
Sure.
That might have been recently, actually. That one kind of rings a bell. I'm going to be so embarrassed when I was there 6 months ago. Oh, yeah.
Well, you've been all over the world, so you're allowed to, be short for a second.
And I've been basically on the road since 1997. So whenever somebody says something with a W in it, I have to, it all kind of runs together, unfortunately. But yeah, if he tells us what city it was in, it might help ring a bell.
Let us know, Earl.
Yeah, give us specifics when you ask questions.
Let us know in the comments. Who do you think's winning tonight, Ole Miss or Miami? No, Monroe, Michigan is where IWR is.
Yes, of course, yeah. Do I have memories of it? I mean, obviously.
Well, when you put it like that, of course I've got memories.
No, Michigan fans have always been great to me, and as an Ohio State guy, I appreciate it.
That says a lot.
When I come up there, they don't boo me out of the building. They still like old Shark Boy. So I appreciate the Michigan wrestling fans, if nothing else.
And you know what? The Ohio State-Michigan documentary on HBO is still one of my favorite sports documentaries
I have
ever.
yet to watch it. I know what you're talking about, though.
Really good.
I know it's must watch for me. At this point, I've heard enough people say that.
When you were training with Les Thatcher, who else was breaking in during the same time as you?
When I broke in with, boy, I know I'm going to forget a bunch of people, but when I originally broke in, one of the guys that broke in right at the same time was a guy named Cody Hawk.
Okay, yeah.
Cody trained Dean Ambrose.
Sure.
Among other wrestlers. He's also working with one of the mini midget wrestling groups in Knoxville, Tennessee, or last I heard, that's what he's up to.
Yeah.
So Cody has been around the business a long time, really knows the business. Like me, I think he's just glad we kind of got such a solid training and foundation. So Cody was a guy I broke in with, and then of course later on I went to I wound up down at the WCW Power Plant. I wrestled with the likes of Jimmy Yang and Jamie Noble and Chuck Palumbo, Mike Sanders, Johnny the Bull. I'm trying to think of all the different guys. I'm forgetting a lot of people, but so many people came through the Power Plant when I was there. And then actually the HWA wound up with a developmental deal with WCW. So a lot of the Power Plant guys wound up coming up to Cincinnati and training there at HWA.
Oh, I didn't know they were training there, too. I knew you guys were going up,
yeah,
right?
So a lot of the same guys that I trained with in Atlanta wound up in Cincinnati. So there was just a heck of a... At that point, then it became, we had Shannon Moore, we had who else? All kinds of great guys. Alan Funk, all kinds of talent was coming through there. So yeah, I mean, I'm forgetting so many people, probably some pretty obvious people, but that gives you an idea.
Now we're gonna get this one done. We're gonna have this. This is a really cool figure. The request is over here in the white paint pen.
Okay.
Any message you'd like to add, as someone who's been looking for your figures for the last few weeks, this is the hardest to get for sure.
I would think so.
Now, in the white paint pen, Bill would like Shark Boy with any message.
Okay, great. Of course, this is the Masked Fury action figure.
Look at that.
Mask. There were three of these, three wrestlers in this set.
Oh, who else was in it?
It was myself, the Monster Abyss.
Okay.
Right? You get the figure and the mask, and the other one was Sting. So me, Abyss, and Sting. Those were the
one of these things is not like the other. So the Sting was an actual pull-over mask?
Something like that.
Really?
I think it might have been one of those that like a Halloween mask.
Oh, see, that makes sense.
Yeah.
WCW used to sell those. Yeah, exactly. I remember
and
that.
This was, I think, his was something more like mine.
That's what, Interesting TNA fact, DJ Eric. Maybe you can expand upon this. Many years ago, Shark Boy was the man that created the name Slammiversary.
It is true.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I walked into a creative meeting, if you could call it that. It was it's funny. It was a DoubleTree, not unlike the hotel that we.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a DoubleTree. There was a little bit of a creative meeting going on.
All right.
And I just remember Jeremy Borash looking at me and saying, "Hey Shark, we need to come up with a name for the anniversary pay-per-view. You got any ideas?" And I just blurted out, Slammiversary. And I can't remember if I'd already used the name or not, but I always thought it would have been a good, and I ran my own promotion in Southern Ohio at the time. So I feel like I used that name too, but obviously once TNA started using it, I, just kind of let that be what it was. It was a bigger deal than my promotion using it.
Well, and the name lives on.
The name lives on. They
years
still
later,
use Slammiversary.
which is fantastic.
And every few years, they brush some dust off me and bring me in for Slammiversary. That's a thank you.
It's only fitting. Anthony wants to know, did you ever run into Stone Cold Steve Austin?
So I ran into him before, really, really early in my career. I ran into him. We were doing benefit shows for the Pillman family when Brian Pillman passed away. And I ran into Stone Cold there. And I got to meet him. Seemed like a really nice guy. And then, a couple of years later, I had some tryout matches with WWE, and I got to meet him there as well. Again, always very friendly to me. And then I started doing the impression. I haven't met him since I started doing it, but he did say in a couple of interviews that he thought, well, it's kind of, the story's kind of funny. I remember Kevin Nash came up behind me and said, "Hey, Shark, Steve likes your stuff, man."
Nice.
He thinks it's funny. And I was like, "Oh, thank God, you're kidding me." And so that was kind of how I found out that I had Steve Austin's, mark of approval. And he said it in a couple of interviews. He wished me the best of luck with it and all that sort of thing. So, nothing but nice things to say about Stone Cold Steve Austin. The only reason I even do the impression is because he's obviously one of my heroes. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that, like you said, there's nothing wrong with getting the stamp of approval.
Well, it's the one time in my career, I tell people this all the time. I would never go to creative and complain or say I won't do something. I'm part of a show, and that was the whole idea, was to be part of the show. But if Steve Austin had a problem with what I was doing, I would have gone to them and said, I don't want to do this anymore.
Wow.
It's the one thing I would have put my foot down. But once I found out that he approved of it, I went all in. I jazzed it up and juiced it up as big as I could.
You committed to it.
Completely, yeah.
Brendan wants to know, besides your mask, Shark Boy, who do you think in wrestling has the best mask?
Boy, that's a tough one. I was always a fan of Tiger Mask.
Yeah.
The Tiger Mask look I thought was really cool. Rey Mysterio's had so many cool masks. Hard not to mention him. Psychosis, I think his mask was really cool. I don't know. That might be my top three. Just off the top of my head.
Tiger Mask, of course, the OG. Yeah, that's such a great mask.
Anything that didn't have a bowl of curry on it, I thought was there's a shot.
Yeah. Keep your punches up, Shark Boy. Hello, Cap and Sharky. It was awesome to see Shark Boy in Regina, Saskatchewan last year. He'd love to hear if you have any stories of touring with CWE.
Great group of guys up there. I had a lot of fun with those guys. It was just a little mini tour. I feel like it was 3 shows in 4 days or something like that. It was a very good time. Fun wrestling in front of the Canadian fans. I hadn't done that in a real long time. I just remember being glad that I went on that tour. You're not always glad when you get home off the road like that you did something, but I was glad that I went and did that one. Hello to Ashland.
Ashland, Kentucky. That's our good friend who put us together, Big Chris.
Yes.
Runs that town. Any memories of Ashland? We got to go there a couple years ago.
Spent a lot of time there early in my career, so sort of cutting my teeth and breaking in. I remember doing a show with the Headbangers.
Okay.
And getting a hell of an education on the wrestling business. Just, those guys are so much fun. I see them every year at this thing we do in Indianapolis, and I always look forward to it. So that's one of my fondest memories, I think, is just early on learning the business from guys like the Headbangers who are always so much fun to be on the road with.
Interesting question. Okay. Please ask Shark Boy about doing a command performance for Afroman.
Yes, I did.
Can we hear that?
So strange that it's true. That's what this falls under. I got contacted by a promoter, and this would have been in southeastern Ohio. I'm trying to think of the name of the town, which blows my. I've wrestled there so many times. Aberdeen, I think, is the name of the town. Anyway, got contacted by this promoter. He said they were friends with Afroman's girlfriend, I think.
Okay.
And their daughter was getting ready to have a birthday, getting ready to turn 12 or something like that. And they were talking about doing a wrestling party because she liked to watch wrestling. And so they started rattling off names of people that they booked on shows before. And when they mentioned my name, Mom's face lit up. She said, "Oh, my daughter loves Shark Boy. That's one of her favorite. Can we get him to do the party?" So I literally got contacted and went to Afroman's house. By the way, it's the one that the cops broke into.
Oh my God.
On that video, you say, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. There was a whole thing where the police busted into his house and tore it all up, and they didn't find whatever it is they were looking for, and he made a music video about it. Well, it was that house, and it was before all that happened. And they had a ring set up in the driveway, and really all I had to do was get in there and kind of wish her a happy birthday. I think we all might have sang happy birthday to her. And of course, the villainous manager had some comments to make, and I wound up giving him the chummer. And that was pretty much all I had to do. The rest of the time I hung out with Afroman. So it was pretty all right, man. It was pretty cool.
A lot of people are asking about your mask, Shark Boy, if you have any interest in moving it. Of course, That's up to you. Maybe you could let us know. And if you guys want to get in our DMs, we'd be able
You're talking about a ring worn
your
mask?
actual mask that you have on.
Okay, so I'd be hesitant to part with this one, and I didn't bring it up with me, but I do have one other ring-worn mask that I believe I have with me.
Okay.
It's in the car.
Okay,
But because I didn't bring it up unless I was going to wait to see if anybody mentioned it.
So people are mentioning it. So everyone, shoot me a DM, and then what we'll do is, because right after this, our buddy Monty and the Pharaoh are going to be continuing the interview. We'll talk to Shark Boy, so we'll be able to get that set out to where maybe someone will be going home with the mask.
Dude, I gotta tell you, besides the one I'm wearing, the one I brought might be the last ring-worn Shark Boy mask that I have.
Really?
Among other things, first of all, I haven't bought a whole lot of masks in my career. I'm notoriously cheap when it comes to gear. I just haven't bought a lot of masks, so I didn't have a lot to begin with. There was also a situation where I had a fire. I don't know if you knew about that.
Yeah, I didn't.
So I lost some stuff in the fire. That was a lot of my early masks and things were, at the very least, fire damaged, and I've never tried to sell those. I'm just kind of hanging on to them for nostalgic purposes because they are fire damaged. I generally, it's not cheap. I generally will ask for $500 for a ring-worn mask, and it's for the reasons that I just stated.
That's valid.
If we want to kind of start the bidding there, I'm willing to entertain an offer.
So if you guys want to get in the DMs, it is worn. You said, right?
Ring-worn,
Yeah. So
it's ring-worn, and I'll autograph it. And it's, I believe, besides the ones that I might have that are fire damaged, I think this is the last mask I have, besides the one I'm wearing right now.
So
I can't part with this one because I'm still wearing it. I'm still using it.
So let us know. Brendan wants to know, with AJ Styles retiring, are there any good AJ stories you can share with us?
Oh, AJ was such an awesome guy, man, to work with, and just a great person. I was lucky enough to travel with him a lot, hang out with him quite a bit, and wrestle him a handful of times. Just one of the smoothest, best wrestlers I ever set foot in the ring with. I can't say enough nice things about him, man. It sounds like I owe him money or something, but that's not it. I just have total respect for AJ, and I really like him as a person. And if anybody, if he sees this somehow or anybody runs into him, just tell him I wish him nothing but the best and happy, a much deserved retirement and an outstanding career. Boy, I tell you, he broke down a lot of barriers, I think, for smaller wrestlers, too. Much like Rey Mysterio did years before, AJ really cleared a path for a lot of guys that were trying to get to the next level in the independents. So, my hats off to AJ Styles, nothing but respect and love.
Now, we brought up WCW. Talk about being a part of WCW in the last couple of years before, it ceased existence. That had to be, got to check it off the bucket list. A lot of people that are active still weren't able to. Can you talk about, like you said, going to PowerPoint, the PowerPoint guys coming to HWA. Yeah. Can you kind of talk about that?
Well, when I signed with them, it was like, I made it. Hey,
sure,
I'm in the big time, And I moved my family down there, and I started training in Atlanta at the power plant. It was a 3-year contract that I signed, and after about 6 months, I got my release. So we're kind of stuck. We're kind of stuck in Atlanta, and we wound up moving back to Ohio. And it was funny because after I got my release is when they started actually using me on television. They started booking me on the WCW Saturday Night program, and we were doing pretty good ratings. We actually caused kind of a bump in the ratings with some of the new talent and young talent that was there, and of course that was enough for them to wind up canceling the show. And then it was just Nitro and Thunder. I think eventually it got down to maybe just Nitro or whatever. And I was just kind of there and watched the company sort of start to grind to a halt. Is kind of what it felt like. And it was really kind of sad because, again, I finally made it to the big time, and then all of a sudden it kind of died. So sort of a bittersweet story, that one.
Saturday Night at one point was the best of WCW shows.
Yeah.
If you were watching it, you understand. I was a teenager. Yeah. I remember watching it and being like, wow, there were so many talented, new characters
and
like
they had
yourself.
A set of guys that were sort of like, I think it was Arn Anderson, Jimmy Hart, Mike Graham. They were
booking, right?
They were booking it. And booking it like a wrestling show. It wasn't, Nitro and Thunder were more like kind of car crash TV. Whatever we can do, big. And that's what the Monday Night Wars were like. So I can't fault them for that. It obviously worked for a period of time. But when it came right down to it, the Saturday night show was being booked sort of like an old school wrestling TV show.
Yeah, it was.
And, it was a pleasure to get to do that. I only got to do it for a couple of months. I think I was maybe at 4 or 5 tapings, but yeah, it was great.
JD wants to know, what was it like teaming with D-Ray 3000 when everyone had to feel the fro in TNA?
Yeah, a lot of fun. We did a lot of goofy stuff. I don't know whose idea it was. I feel like it was mine. I don't know. But we decided to use the bushwhacker battering ram thing with the Afro. We called it the Afro Ram. I remember doing that. I remember just some of the spots we would come up with were so goofy and weird and fun. We were sort of the comic relief. We were a good opening match tag team kind of a thing. A lot of fun. D-Ray's a great guy, so yeah, I haven't seen him in a long time. Shout out to D-Ray. Hope all is well with you, my friend.
Yeah, what is D-Ray up to? I haven't heard the name in a while either.
I haven't run into him in so long. Was working in Michigan a lot is that where he's from? I think he's from up there.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think he's a Michigan guy. So as far as I know, that's where he's at, and I hope he's doing well.
Now, you were under developmental deal after WCW and before TNA, right?
Not exactly.
No,
the HWA had a development.
Oh, what was the process then? Because there was contracted guys then with.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what it was.
Contracted guys and non-contracted guys. So basically, the contracted guys all moved to Cincinnati and started training there, and I was with them again, but I wasn't actually under contract at that point. Yeah, but I was still kind of in the mix. I remember getting used on a taping and things like that. So. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of difference other than they were still getting weekly checks and I wasn't.
It's just a title at that point, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, can you talk about being a part of TNA in that first year or so? I remember when they were doing the weekly pay-per-view concept. It was one of those. It was kind of different compared to the big monthly shows that we were used to.
Yeah.
But talk about there's all these talented guys that aren't signed anywhere now because ECW, WCW aren't around. The indies. There's an indie boom because there's so much talent that's not in the WWF. Can you talk about being a part of that talent that's a big part of getting TNA off the ground?
Well, I'll tell you, I showed up, I think it was, I can't remember now if it was the 5th episode or the 7th episode. It was something like that. It was pretty early on when they started doing the weekly pay-per-views. I wasn't there at the very first show, but it was real soon after that. And I wish I could tell you what number show it was. But
someone can probably.
I know. Somebody out there probably knows. But, it was just a really thrilling thing for me because this was the only other game in town. It was WWE or nothing at that point. So for all of us for this group of people to sort of come work for the Jarretts, that was an exciting thing for me too. In Nashville at the fairgrounds is where I made my debut for them, and they started doing the weekly shows there. So that was exciting to get to be a part of sort of wrestling history there. But yeah, it was a thrilling time because unless you were working for WWE, you weren't getting any exposure at all at that point in the business. So I can just remember us all being very hungry and very determined to, some of us, make a name for ourselves, and some of us sort of stay on television and relevant in terms of the wrestling business.
Dottie wants to know, can we hear your thoughts about the Dean Baldwin character and how that came about?
From what I understand, the story I heard from Dean Baldwin himself was that somebody thought he looked a lot like a Baldwin. Whether you want to say Alec Baldwin or Stephen Baldwin, they sort of had a similar look at the time. Boy, you could really pass for one of those brothers, And from my understanding, Dean Baldwin is the runt of the litter. He is the 5th Baldwin, the least respected Baldwin, the one who couldn't make it in Hollywood, the one who couldn't make it on television, the one who decided to try to make a name for himself in professional wrestling, and always felt like he was better than the fans. He's a Baldwin, for God's sake. What's he doing in this, dump of a town? Just the exact polar opposite of what Shark Boy, what the Shark Boy character personifies. So, had to be a lot of fun to be Dean Baldwin.
When did you realize the Shark Boy character was really starting to become popular in the Impact Zone or on TNA programming?
I'll tell you, it happened almost right away. It was kind of stunning. I came out to this, really great ovation, and I mean, I had a buzz on the indies, but I didn't know that many fans. I guess, the internet was kind of starting to really take off. The sheets were there already, but then the internet made it like the sheets were everywhere. You know what I mean by that? The dirt sheets?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there was a buzz about me, and I think people either were somewhat familiar with the character, or, when I walked out, they said, "Oh, this is the guy that we've read about," So it was right away. I'm telling you, like, the fans were kind of with me right away, which is great. I appreciate that. If not for the fans, I don't know that any of these groups I've worked for would ever give me a second look. I think it was more, they had to, because the people kind of demanded it, which is great. And I really appreciate that about Shark Boy fans, in general.
Johnny wants to know, what ocean does Shark Boy hail from?
This one.
Yeah.
Did it again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Just a minute.
Yeah, we'll let this dry over here.
What ocean? I've generally been billed as being from the deep blue sea. So what they'll do is they'll say, from the deep blue sea by way of the Ohio River, or whatever, wherever it is I'm at. You know what I mean? We find the local body of water, and we use that to explain how I got there. Which I'm not sure scientifically that makes any sense, but that's how we do it.
I feel like in wrestling, almost anything can make sense.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. If I had to narrow it down to one, I guess I would say the Atlantic Ocean. I'd spend a little more time on the East Coast.
That makes the most sense.
The West Coast, yeah.
Johnny said it would be cool to see Shark Boy team with the Shark, John Tenta.
Yes, that would have been great. We missed each other. You know what I mean? I don't know, when did he pass away? What year was that? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll go back and watch The Dark Side again. I watched that episode too.
Yeah, I did too. I want to say probably mid-2000s.
Okay.
Right? Let us know in the comments, when did John Tenta pass away?
Yeah.
I feel like 2006 or 7, right?
I thought before that, but maybe not.
Was it before that? Let us know. It might have been before that.
We never were. I don't remember ever meeting him, to be honest with you. I don't think I ever met him. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have met him.
One of the biggest shows, the late 90s, early 2000s, MTV's I Wanna Be, and of course, all the wrestling fans remember the Pro Wrestler episode, which you were featured on.
For about 15 seconds.
But can you talk about that and how that came about?
So the whole thing was, the original premise of the show was, we're going to follow a wrestler that's in his later years, and that wrestler was Tony Atlas.
Of course.
We're going to follow a wrestler who is right now at the top of the game, which was the game, Triple H. And we're going to follow a guy breaking in, which is a kid named Matt, who was breaking into the business.
Okay.
And Matt's going to come learn wrestling at Les Thatcher's main event pro wrestling camp in Cincinnati. So the cameras were there to follow Matt. Meanwhile, they also came to our shows, our indie shows, and got footage, and Matt wound up washing out, man. He had a drug problem, unfortunately.
Oh, really? I was wondering what happened to him.
And they wound up following a different wrestler, Rapid Delivery Roy Fox, the paperboy.
Yes.
They followed him instead. But during that whole thing where they're following him around and going to our shows, they interviewed me with my gear on for just a few seconds. And I swear to you, to this day, that's one of the things people remember about me most. And I think the reason why, other than Shark Boy is just kind of a memorable character, it's hard to forget this face. But other than the other thing is they showed it about 1 million times on MTV. It aired over and over and over again. It was to the point where sometimes it would come on, I'd change the channel because I'd seen it so many times, even though I was getting ready to be on MTV again. So I think that's one of the main reasons. People were still watching MTV back then.
And MTV just officially ended the other day, which is crazy to think.
Pretty much done at this point. Yeah, it is. It's sad. I remember I want my MTV in the 80s. It was, had to have MTV.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to watch MTV until I was 8 or 9. My parents, and then I finally was able to, and I got introduced to so many amazing bands, and music videos because of that. To where, as a kid, I was born in '83, so I feel like. The radio didn't interest me until I became, in my teenage years, because MTV was how I listened to music.
Yes.
You just visually, and the music was almost secondary to some extent, which is, as I've gotten older, I realized how insane to think that was the case for decades.
But it was a new medium at the time.
It was, it was.
It was a way for artists to express themselves visually, not just musically, so.
And there was a big boom in the music industry, right, with MTV.
MTV kick-started so many careers, and it was the reason people got cable cable television.
Yeah.
I want
my
people to have
MTV. Yeah. I read a whole book about that. Probably it was about the rise of MTV, and it was from 10 years ago, so there wasn't a fall. But now I feel like a documentary on MTV being so
What happened
hot.
to it?
Yeah, like how to end up with just ridiculousness.
I'll tell you, yeah, that's the thing. It turned into Jersey Shore and the Real World, and
there was no music.
And they stopped showing music videos. I think that was the downfall.
Yeah, you would think MTV Music Television would have to have X amount of music videos a day.
That should go without saying.
Right? He wants to know any memories of your matches with Kazarian, your time with Kazarian.
Yes, always really enjoyed wrestling. Frankie, as I call him, always really loved wrestling him. He's one of the most technically sound guys, just like AJ. You think about that division for a minute. You had AJ Daniels, Joe, Frankie,
Petey Williams,
the Motor City Machine Guns,
Jay Lethal,
myself,
Dutt,
Austin Aries, Sanjay Dutt, and I'm probably leaving out 5 or 6 guys.
That's like a whole promotion.
Think about
I know.
At one time or another, all those guys comprised the X division. And you think about all the different matches, and then the 5-way and 6-way and 8-way things we did.
Michael Shane.
Yes, Michael Shane. Yeah, Michael Shane. But Frankie was always one of my favorite opponents, and what a great guy. One of those guys. He sends birthday wishes to my kid and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Cool. Like, good guy.
Just an awesome guy. Shout out to Frankie. Nothing but great memories working with Frankie and just hanging out with him, being friends.
And Tom actually commented that when you were in Saskatchewan, the first match of the first show, he saw you in Saskatchewan, but you were in the first match of the first show that he ever went to for WWA in Wembley Arena versus Frankie Kazarian.
We wrestled overseas. We wrestled at the pay-per-view in Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland. And then he and I wrestled maybe a couple other times, and then it turned into like a 4-way thing with Johnny Swinger and Spider Nate Webb. So those were, matches with Frankie were always so much fun. It was one of those guys you didn't have to worry about. Is he going to crack me in the face? Is he going to, just smooth as could be, Frankie. Just a really great wrestler. So, great memories working with him. Always loved it.
Have you ever had Szechuan sauce? That's Nolan's question.
Have I ever had Szechuan sauce?
Yeah.
I had to have, right?
I think that's like one of the big Chinese sauces.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have. I guess I don't actively seek it out.
Yeah, that's very specific,
That's an
Nolan.
odd question.
A very specific question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that very specific question.
And I'll make next time I'm here, I'll have made sure to try it again.
Yeah. So when you ask that question,
what I think of it, I don't know.
Johnny said that he sees Billy Baldwin connection with Dean Baldwin.
Okay, I can see that. There's a picture of Dean Baldwin and Stephen Baldwin together at a bar, and I'll tell you what. There's a striking resemblance.
Really?
Striking resemblance between the two.
Steve Baldwin, legendary.
Yes.
Biodome,
yes.
one of my favorite.
The Usual Suspects.
Another all-time. I just rewatched on a flight in the last 2 years. I hadn't seen it in 15 years or so. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's so sad. Yeah, he has.
Yep. And he's Justin Bieber's father-in-law now.
I know. To top it off, right?
That's insane.
So Freddie wants to know, who are your 3 favorite opponents? It's hard to narrow it down to 3, of course, but if you could name 3 of your favorite.
I'll name 3 that come to mind right away. I always say Eddie Guerrero right up front. I wrestled Eddie and Billy Kidman in a 3-way match, and Kidman should be on the list too. But it was real early in my career when I just signed with WCW. This would have been in '99, I believe. And I got the chance to wrestle Eddie Guerrero. And that was just, once in a lifetime kind of a thing. Jeff Jarrett, for sure. Every time I wrestled Jeff in TNA, it was so much fun. The crowd wanted me to beat him so bad. And just drawing off that energy. And Jeff's a great wrestler, too. And probably I would list, I listed all those X Division guys earlier. Whenever I used to, I did a lot of tag team stuff. And whenever they put us with the Motor City Machine Guns, I always had a great time.
So good, those
Shelly
guys.
and Saban would show me stuff. They were younger than me, but they would show me new things that I didn't know. I'd always want to get in the ring with them before the show and be like, show me something, And I don't always do that with guys. So I really respect those guys, but they always had such neat stuff that they did. So I would list them as two of my favorite opponents. And I'm leaving out 100 or 1,000 other opponents by, I hate that question.
Yeah, no, but you
Because
did,
there's so many people.
you did a good job of incorporating a bunch of them, though.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
get
The
caught-
whole X division, really. My God, those guys were outstanding. Had a lot of good matches with Petey Williams, too, for sure.
Petey was so good.
Yeah. I was afraid to take that
Destroyer?
flippy pile driver.
Yeah.
And he walked me through it the way, and it turned into whenever we were together on a show, I'd go, I want to do that. I know how to do that. It's just the way the crowd reacts to it was always, that was always my thing.
Oh, at one point, that was, I feel like, the most duplicated move in wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone was trying to do it.
I would work on an indie show, and this kid comes up to me I was working with. This happened more than once. Yeah. He goes, hey, will you take a Canadian destroyer? And I said, is Petey on the show? And he goes, oh, no, and I said, no, that's Petey's. I'm going to do that with him. I didn't trust anybody else.
No, for something like that, I don't blame you.
No.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, so for people to emulate it, it wasn't with me.
Actually, someone else that we skipped when we were just going over TNA's roster, the Amazing Red.
Yes.
Someone else that,
you know what? He was there and I was there at a couple different times, but I don't know. I know we wrestled once.
Okay, like a six.
I was almost, we did a 6-man, yes. And then I wrestled him in a singles match one time.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I was the big guy. I'm never the big guy in a wrestling match. And I remember one of the things I said I wanted to do, I said, Red, if you don't mind, I said, I never, ever get to do this. I said, I want to press you over my head and just throw you over the top rope, like Rocky 3.
Yeah,
I just want to chuck you over there. And he goes, okay. And and I tell you, it was awesome.
That is great.
Somebody goes, why'd you guys do that? I said, because I could. That's the only guy I've ever been able to do that with.
And that's a valid reason.
Yeah. And it added to the match. He wound up winning, so it didn't matter. But there you go. Check it out. Give me a show, yeah, right there.
There it is.
But yeah, shout out to Red. Love Red. We only crossed paths very few times, surprisingly.
Which is crazy.
We're both baby faces, so.
Well, yeah, that's why I would understand in the
match. I was the heel in that match, just by default. I was the bigger guy,
Brian wants to know, did you enjoy being in the TNA video game?
Yeah, that was great. Oh God, there was a couple things I wanted. It was, it was an action figure, and it was being in a video game. And I got to do both those things. So yeah, being in the video game was awesome. I got a story about that. My oldest son, he was pretty young when the video game came out. I want to say he might have been 10 years old, something like that. And he's I got the game, and he's at my apartment, and he's playing the game. And I leave the room, and I come back in the room, and I come in, and Abyss has Shark Boy by the neck, and he throws him out of the ring, and he's hitting Shark Boy with a chair, and he picks Shark Boy up and drops him on the guardrail and slams him into the post. And I look at my son, and I go, keep practicing, buddy. You'll figure this game out. And he looks at me, and he goes, oh, I'm not you. He was kicking the crap out of me as a
my God. That's a significant moment.
It makes sense because Abyss was his favorite wrestler.
Well, then when you put it like that, and by the way, we have someone popping in, someone we've had on before that knows you.
Okay.
Well, the one and only Flash Flanagan says that voice sounds familiar.
What's up, Flash? How you doing, brother? Oh man, I haven't seen him in a long time either.
You probably have a Flash story,
Oh, not that I can tell.
Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Flash. Don't put me on the spot, brother. You have all the same stories. They probably involve Ian Rott and IWA. That was when Flash and I were around each other quite a bit. Back in
Everyone does have an Ian Rott story.
Yeah. Ian, working for Ian. Yep, for sure.
Donnie wants to know, we talked about briefly, we opened up. He wants to know, what sports do you enjoy? Do you have specific teams you support?
I am a Cincinnati guy through and through. I grew up in the Cincinnati area, went to college in Cincinnati. Bengals, Reds, the UC Bearcats. Also an Ohio State fan. You can't live in the state of Ohio without supporting the Buckeyes. A lot of Ohio stuff. That's where I'm from. Probably my favorite sport's probably NFL football. I like college football a lot. I like Major League Baseball a lot. I think that's the main stuff that I watch. I'll watch some fights, UFC fights, or Netflix boxing.
That's the big thing now,
right? I'll watch that. And I try to keep up with wrestling. It's hard now. There's so much wrestling.
Yeah.
There's so much wrestling.
Yeah, there is.
You know, everywhere and anywhere. I let my son guide me. He says, "Oh, Dad, you got to watch this match."
He lets you know what to watch.
You gotta
That's
watch
good.
these guys. That's how I keep up with wrestling.
That's the best thing you can ask for.
Yeah.
Someone that lets you know what you really need to watch.
Watch this match, you'll like it. Or Dad, that you may not like, you don't want to watch this match. You know. So
I'm going to read the bio over here. Although Shark Boy has formed an alliance with Curryman, many insiders predict it will explode. Because his romp and stomp and star from the sea just doesn't seem to trust anyone. He has been entertaining fans for several years, but popularity has never been bigger. He scored many wins with his patented deep sea drop and hails from 20,000 leagues under the sea. You talked about it earlier. Talk about your time with Curryman, if you could.
yeah, boy, we had a lot of fun. I'll tell you what. It was a weird pairing, but we're two weird characters, so I guess in a way it made sense. But here I am, sort of the bass kicker, who sounds like the Texas rattlesnake, and you got the guy speaking broken Japanese with a thing of rice on his head, and it was a weird pairing. But then they threw Super Eric in the mix, and we started to get really over as the Justice League, the Prince Justice League, they called us, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of fun being those characters. Another good sort of opening match, what they call the curtain jerker. They would put us out there first to get the crowd psyched up. A fan favorite. Our T-shirts started to outsell beer money, so they had to break us up. They were pushing beer money, and they said, we can't have that. So they wound up splitting us up and getting rid of Curryman, and, you know. But boy, we had a lot of fun while it lasted, I'll tell you. It was, you know, we were never going to main event or be tag team champions, but we beat the Dudleys. We beat Team 3D in the Fish Market Street Fight.
See?
So, yeah. Curryman, without going too much into his actual identity, one of the best minds as far as laying out matches, and you know, so easy to work with him for sure, you know.
Absolutely. He's hot, he's spicy, he tastes great.
Yes.
Tom wants to know, great question. Any memories the hardcore match you had with Abyss that involved the barbed wire Christmas tree?
I get asked about this a lot. Yes, that was the Nightmare Before Christmas or match or something. What did they call it? Christmas. I can't remember what they call it.
Let us know in the comments. What was the name of that match?
What was it called? The barbed wire Christmas tree was something that I didn't really want any part of, I gotta tell you. And it was also the time when I was all bandaged up and from getting beat up for weeks in a row. Not my style of match, but we did the best we could with it. I think it was a 4-way. It was Abyss, Black Rain, better known as Gold Dust, and Relic, who was actually Johnny the Bull. It was the 4 of us. Hardcore match, not my specialty. I just tried to get out of that thing alive. Try not to make anybody look bad. The Christmas tree was very tough to work with. There wasn't much you could do with it.
That tree doesn't know how to work.
There's one spot that makes no sense where I think somebody whipped me into it, and when I ran into it, I just hit the deck. I didn't even realize. I bumped into it, and I fell down, and the tree barely moved. So you have to explain, because it was hanging from the ceiling, so it didn't make any sense whatsoever.
So we have a few people answered the Silent Night, Bloody Night.
Silent Night, Bloody Night. There you go. There you go.
Brian says him and his son watch it every year at Christmas.
Yes.
That's cool.
It's a Christmas tradition.
Yeah.
Not unlike Elf or Christmas Vacation. You have to watch that match.
D. Jarrett also wants some memories of working with the late, great New Jack.
Yeah, New Jack. Boy, that was a scary thing when I found out I was going to be working with him. I didn't know what to think.
Where was that?
TNA.
It was TNA.
Yeah,
okay.
early TNA. Well, probably the first storyline they put me in, if you want to call it that, was with him. And I thought, oh man, what am I getting myself into here? You know what I mean? What's he getting him? So he felt the same way. We looked at each other and we're like, what are we doing? And we shot that first vignette where we played Candyland in the backstage area, and both had a bunch, we had a good time doing it and laughed a lot, and we actually had some ideas. Hey, next time around, maybe we'll try doing it this way. And it turned into a thing where, at least for me anyway, it was really enjoyable. I got to be friends with him, and wasn't sure what he would think of old Shark Boy.
That would be a hell of a tag team, too.
It's the odd couple.
Yeah.
And we teamed up once or twice at least, I know.
Freddie talks about wrestling Eddie Guerrero. He said he would imagine that you learned a lot in that match.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of people can say that,
Well, what's funny is it was a 3-way thing, and Eddie was late. His flight was delayed. So Kidman and I sort of put something together before Eddie got there. And when Eddie got there, Kidman says, okay, he's gonna do this thing where he bites my fingers. And Eddie goes, I want him to bite my fingers. Let him bite my fingers too. I said, okay. And he says, they'll do this thing. He's going to bite me in the ass. Eddie goes, oh, he's got to bite me in the ass too. So Eddie wanted to do all the spots that Kidman wanted to do. So I wound up just doing it to both of them.
Yes.
And it was really fun. Just that Eddie wanted to do all my shtick. And he gave me a bunch of offense too. Like he was, he didn't have to do that. He could have just got in there and squashed me if he wanted to, but he didn't. He gave me a lot of offense. So
tells you a lot about the kind of mind he had. He knew, bringing guys up, helping guys out.
Young guy looked good.
Yep.
Right. That was it.
Can you talk about our buddy Wildcat Chris Harris that we'll have tomorrow night at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, Wildcat. He and I go a ways back, man. We both trained in Cincinnati. I was with Les, and Cat was with a different school, a different company. So we weren't allowed to be friends early on. And same went with Abyss. Abyss and Cat were in the one school, and I was in the other. And when we got to TNA, we all became good friends. So it was kind of one of those deals where we would have been friends all along, but we weren't allowed to play together. So a lot of good memories. I missed a flight because of Wildcat one time. That's a story.
For good reason.
We went out the night before, and I missed a flight, and I hardly ever missed flights in my career. Maybe one. That might have been the only time, maybe twice. But yeah.
He missed the flight.
He didn't have a flight.
Oh, Wildcat.
He lived by the airport. And so I just said, hey, Cat, can I crash at your place? Because I got a really early flight and I don't want to miss it. And he goes, yeah, come on down. We'll go out. I'll show you around, And I slept through the flight. And I got a later flight. I made the show, thankfully. But
we gotta bring that up tomorrow for Wildcat to comment on.
Cat's partying days, though. Like I don't know that he doesn't act like that anymore.
I'm sure he's got some memories of that story.
He might tell you about it. I think we shot some pool that night, too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of a pool shark.
Freddie wants to know, was there anyone that I guess you were ever speechless to find out that you were working or wrestling? Was there anyone that you were really taken aback when they told you, hey, next week or tonight, you're in there with so-and-so?
What's funny, because the first thing that popped in my head was when they told us we were doing that, what did they call that thing? The Terror Dome, the big red cage. And the only way to win was to climb up the thing and go out through the hole in the top of the cage. And I just remember walking out and looking at that thing and just my mouth fell open. I thought, what do I do with this thing? You know what I mean? I didn't even want to climb up there, let alone get up to the top and climb out the top, So I remember that being kind of a whoa. And I had to get in there and kind of climb up the sides and feel it out a little bit. As far as a wrestler goes, yeah, man. You know what? There was one. It wasn't that long ago. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I did a tag team match with Cowboy Bob Orton.
Okay.
As in Randy Orton's dad. As in the Ace, the bodyguard for Roddy Piper. And I was kind of blown away by that. Just getting to do that. Because that was somebody I looked up to when I was a kid. Bought tickets to watch him wrestle, and I think it would probably be somebody like that. Working with Jeff on TV, Jeff Jarrett, was a big deal. I was his first TV match when we were on Fox Sports. TNA was on Fox Sports, and it was me and him in the main event. That was a big deal. Yeah, I think those guys. Again, probably guys I'm not thinking of that. I've been in awe of so many of my colleagues, throughout the years, and just lucky. All the guys I got to wrestle and meet and hang out with. Super lucky.
TNA on Fox Sports was so cool. It had the ticker.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like treated like a sport.
Yeah. That was always very cool.
I liked it too.
That was actually the first time, other than the weekly pay-per-views. Remember, I forgot how long into. We had Explosion for a little while in New York, but I remember when the Fox Sports deal happened. That's when we were able to really
finally got to watch.
Keep up with it every week. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Ed, you're good. We had one of the questions earlier. I want to know, how do you see the NFL football playoffs going?
Oh, that's a really good question. Boy, I'll tell you, the surprising one for me has been the Patriots. They have been tough, man. Yeah. I look at them to maybe do some damage. And the Bears have really come on strong as of late, but they got to get by the Packers in that first round.
Go Pack, go!
Yeah, I got you. It's hard for me to pick a winner. My team's out, and I'm not a big Steelers fan, as you can imagine. The Bengals and the Steelers. do not get along at all whatsoever. So I don't see them making it past the Texans anyway. No disrespect to my Pittsburgh fans out there. It's just the way I see it going. You might agree with me. The AFC North was real kind of weak this year. There wasn't a clear dominant team. As a matter of fact, the Steelers are one field goal away from not going at all and Baltimore going. So
I know,
which was crazy.
Aaron Rodgers leading the Steelers one strong.
Gotta give him respect. And the other one I give props to is Joe Flacco coming back for the Bengals.
Oh my God,
he did great. If our defense didn't stink out loud, we would have won those games that he played. So respect, props to the old guys who just came back for the Colts. Rivers.
Philip Rivers out of retirement.
Old man
with his
Rivers.
19 kids.
yeah. Old man Rivers came back. It's kind of nice to see those guys. As somebody who's getting into later stages, middle age,
they're good. They're fun stories.
Seeing those guys come back like that, unbelievable. But as far as who's going to the Super Bowl, your guess is as good as mine. That's what's so fun. There's no Chiefs this year.
I know.
Eagles aren't the Eagles of old.
Who would have thought that everyone was like that the Kansas City Chiefs, everyone's waiting for them to not be in the playoffs.
Right.
Who would have said that 10 years ago?
Right.
That they're the most dominant franchise of the last 7 or 8 seasons.
This year.
Agreed.
You have no idea what's going to happen. Will the Bills finally come on strong?
I know. I know.
Anything could happen, but
I'm Packers, but the Bears making a run would be interesting.
The Patriots, I'm telling you.
The Patriots.
It's funny because now it's like they're a long shot, but back in the day, not that long
ago. No.
Every year the Patriots were going to the
What about the Jaguars too?
The Jaguars,
wins, right?
The Jaguars. Lawrence looks good.
Yeah, I know. He's a stud.
I'm telling you, man, anything can happen. It's going to be exciting to watch the playoffs.
First game, 4:30 tomorrow. 4:30 Saturday. This is Thursday. By the way, the Hurricanes up 3-0 over here.
What's happening?
The Hurricanes up 3-0.
Oh, it's okay. I should have bet the under.
Right, I know. You ain't kidding.
Mention the Broncos. The Broncos are tough. Their defense is really tough. Texans too. I think the Texans defense wins playoffs. Defense wins Super Bowls.
It sure does.
Yeah. Anyway,
especially with the
you got me in football mode.
I know. Especially, it's a second season now. With getting banged up, whoever's defense can maintain and sustain.
Absolutely.
As we wind down the live portion, Shark Boy.
Yes.
Watch, tell everyone what you have coming up, and of course where people can follow you, maybe on social media.
Yeah, I am on X, otherwise known as Twitter. It's SharkBoy24_7 is where you find me. That's SharkBoy24_7. It's at SharkBoy24/7. Get on there. I post things on there whenever there's stuff going on. That's where you'll find out what I'm up to. I have an appearance coming up in Chillicothe in March. That's Chillicothe, Ohio. I have an appearance in Indianapolis coming up. Is that March? I think that's also in March or April. But you can find more about it on my X page, my Twitter page. And just thank you, everybody, for all your support. I really, really, really appreciate all of you. I'm throwing a fin your way right now. And give me a shell, yeah.
Shell yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Wildcat Chris Harris will be on tomorrow, 6 o'clock.
What's up, Cat? What's up, Wolfie D?
Hey, that's right. As always, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. And we're going to end it the way we always end it. Cheers to the working man.